Hello, my sweet summer children. Today is day one of my new series called The Real History Behind Game of Thrones, or A Song of Ice and Fire. I will be doing multiple videos on all of the real history that influenced George R.R. Martin for A Song of Ice and Fire, which ultimately translated to Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones and history, the two things I really love, had a baby, and it's this series. And I wanted to start this series with one of my favorite places, Braavos and the Faceless Men of Braavos. At the end of the video, I will give you a channel update, but for now, let's talk about Braavos and the Faceless Men and the real history they are based on. At the far northwestern corner of Essos, where the Shivering Sea and the Narrow Sea come together, the free city of Braavos stands upon its famed 100 Isles, amidst the shallow, brackish waters of a fog-shrouded lagoon. Braavos was founded by Valyrian slaves, and the island was kept a secret for many, many years. Braavos is almost certainly based on Venice and the Island of Rhodes. Like Braavos, Venice is a city made up of 118 islands that are separated by canals and linked by bridges, but by far, the physical connection is not the only thing that Venice and Braavos have in common. Braavos has a ceremony called the Unmasking. Braavos was a city that lived and thrived in secrecy for over 100 years. Braavosi merchant ships carried false charts and practiced an artful deceit when questioned about their home port. Thus, for more than a century, Braavos was known as the Secret City. Sea Lord Eutheros Lane put an end to the secrecy, sending forth his ships to every corner of the world to proclaim the existence and location of Braavos, and invite men of all nations to celebrate the 111th festival of the city's founding. By that time, all of the original escaped slaves were dead, along with all of their former masters. Even so, Euthero had sent envoys from the Iron Bank to Valyria several years prior to clear the way for what became known as the Uncloaking, or the Unmasking of Euthero. The Dragon Lords proved to have little interest in the descendants of slaves who had escaped a century before, and the Iron Bank paid handsome settlements to the grandchildren of the men whose ships the founders had seized and sailed away. Thus was an accord achieved. The anniversary of the Uncloaking is celebrated every year in Braavos with 10 days of feasting and masked revelry, a festival like none other in all the known world, culminating at midnight on the 10th day, when the Titan roars and tens of thousands of revelers and celebrants remove their masks as one. So that's in Braavos. But in Venice, there is a carnival. The carnival dates back to 1162. The carnival, like in Braavos, is a 10-day event. It was outlawed in the 1700s, and then it appeared again, and then disappeared, and then was fully revived in the 70s. But basically, like Braavos, it's a masked festival. Venice is sometimes called the City of Masks. These Venetian masks could have been worn on days that weren't festivals, because there were other times when masks were allowed. Actually, most of the year, masks were allowed to be worn. They date as far back, if not further, than the 13th century. The masks were worn throughout daily life for secrecy. Maybe you wanted to pass through a street and not be recognized. You would wear your mask. Or you wanted to visit a brothel and you didn't want anyone to know that you were at a brothel. You didn't want wifey to find out, so you would wear a mask. But another thing that the masks did for Venice socially is they put everyone on an equal playing field. In a mask, a servant could be mistaken as a nobleman. Spies could pass for Joe Schmo taking his regular walk for some cockles. Masked, no one knew anyone's social standing and everyone had a voice. This rhymes with Braavos. This seemed like a main principle of Braavos: equality, everyone having a voice, no gods being above the other. Since the escaped slaves came from many lands and held many faiths, the founder of Braavos created a place where all gods were given their due and decreed that none would ever be made paramount over another. They were a diverse people whose numbers included Andals, Summer Islanders, Giscari, Nathi, Ronar, Ibbenese, Sarnori, even debtors and criminals of pure Valyrian blood. The Isle of Gods was founded, and any temple you wanted to worship at and any god you wanted to pray to was your choice. So there are two things here that are similar to Venice. First, we are going to talk about the founding of Venice. Venice was founded around the time of the fall of the Roman Empire. And we could go into how the Roman Empire and Valyria had their parallels, and we will in another video, but I don't think that Valyria just parallels with the Romans. I'm not even going to go into that. I want to talk to you about that solely in another video. But in about 400 AD, refugees fleeing the Italian mainland found their place in a lagoon. As Roman cities fell and the Roman Empire collapsed, refugees fled to a lagoon that would, in 50 years, at the strike of noon, be named Venice. Now, with religion, although the people of Venice generally remained Orthodox Roman Catholics, the state of Venice was notable for its freedom from religious fanaticism and executed nobody for religious heresy during the Counter-Reformation. So at the time when people were being murdered for their religious beliefs, Venice was basically tolerant and not all like burn you, burn you, burn you at the stake. I'm pretty sure it wasn't like Braavos, but I mean, for that time period, that is a very liberal take. So we can't really talk about Braavos without talking about the Iron Bank. And the Iron Bank is an international bank that operates in Braavos, but it lends money all through the world to the kings of Westeros. The Iron Bank makes kings rise and fall. But oddly enough, Venice is home of the first international bank, or the first international financial institution, the first bank of Europe, the Bank of Venice. And that's basically it as far as like banking goes. So the early political structure of Venice was much like Braavos. Braavos has a sea lord who is elected, and Venice has a doge, I don't know how to pronounce it. And I was shocked because their palaces even physically kind of look the same. In Braavos, the power of governance is held by the Sea Lord, but the Sea Lord is elected by the city's magisters and key holders. The magisters are like the powerful and rich people, like, for example, Illyrio is a magister, although Illyrio is a magister of Pentos and not Braavos. And the key holders are actually descendants of the 23 people who founded the Iron Bank. This also echoes a bit with Venice, because Venice elected its first doge through the 12 founding families of Venice, known as the Apostolic families. Talk of Braavos is not complete without mentioning the Faceless men, the trained religious assassins. The Faceless men seem to be inspired by a mix of the Knights Templar, the Knights Hospitallers, and the Hashishans. Pronunciation. Like, how do I say it right? I know you're going to tell me. We know that George R.R. Martin is inspired by the Accursed King series. And the first book of that series is The Iron King. Like, I just started reading that series, and I kind of thought it was going to be dated, and it's not. It's so good. I recommend that series, The Accursed Kings. But anyway, in the first book, The Iron King, Jacques De Molay is imprisoned, and he is the Grand Master of the Knights Templar. Jacques is definitely the inspiration for Jaqen. Do you see where I'm going? Jacques De Molay. Do you see where I'm going with this? Jacques De Molay was a real person from history. He was really the Grand Master of the Knights Templar, and he was burned at the stake for being like a heretic. I just feel like no doubt he was some inspiration for Jaqen. The Knights Templar were a large organization of devout Christians, a wealthy, powerful, and mysterious order of holy folks. The Knights Templar set up a prosperous banking system and had enormous financial influence. They were fierce warriors during the Crusades. They didn't change their faces and poison people with basilisk blood, but they were a secretive, mysterious order of religious warriors, kind of like the Faceless men. Now, the Hospitallers, or the Knights Hospitaller, or the Knights of Malta were another religious order. While they have like two color sets, one is red and white, the other is black and white, the House of Black and White. The Hospitallers had one of their headquarters on the Islands of Rhodes. I know we talked a lot about Venice being the inspiration of Braavos, but one thing from Braavos, one very important thing from Braavos, that inspiration definitely came from the headquarters of the Knights Hospitaller on the Islands of Rhodes, and that is the Titan of Braavos. The Titan of Braavos is almost definitely modeled after the Colossus of Rhodes. The Colossus of Rhodes was a statue of the Greek sun god Helios erected in the city of Rhodes. It's like Helios from Overwatch, you know? Yeah, do you play Overwatch? The Colossus of Rhodes is one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. But even in Venice, the Knights of Malta were huge. The Knights Hospitaller, the Knights Templar, they created monasteries in Venice to help pilgrims traveling to the Holy Land. I mean, this had to be George's inspiration. We've talked about the Knights Templar and the Knights Hospitaller, but they weren't assassins. But there is a group of religious people who were assassins, the Hashishans. They were a secret order of Muslim assassins that were really big during the Crusades. They used the term assassin to kind of refer to the entire sect, but only a certain group of acolytes were actually assassins. These assassins, or these warriors, managed to carry out espionage and assassinations of key enemy figures. They killed like sultans and crusader leaders. Like, they really got it. They really popped off. They didn't hide in the shadows or change their faces or poison people, but they were a secret order of religious assassins. So George has taken all of this and built on it, turned it up to 11. And that's why A Song of Ice and Fire is so good, because it stems from places and events and peoples and things from world history. I love history, and I love making connections between A Song of Ice and Fire and history, so you can expect many of these videos to be coming out. I have been working on so many of them, and I've just been indulging in Egyptian, like ancient Egypt, and I swear, I know the Valyrians have Roman ties, but they also have a lot of ties to Egypt, and I'm going to be doing a video on that. Maybe I'll do that one next. Also, Quinn and myself are working on Obsidian Knights. Obsidian Knights is coming, guys. I have so much A Song of Ice and Fire content that I want to do. Like, literally, I've been doing my own fan fiction, season 5 through 8. There's just so many shows that I've been watching that I want to review. But also, I will be in Nashville at Con of Thrones. I'm on several panels, and I've been preparing for those panels, and I really hope to see you there. So if you guys are coming to Con of Thrones, I will be there. I will hug you. You know, I can't wait to meet you. But anyway, as always, thanks for watching. Thanks to everyone that supports me on Patreon. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please click that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, and join the Sweet Summer family. Okay, my sweet summer children, have a good day.
Shame.